Today is an excellent topic we're going to be touching on, from friction to flow. And you should see the prompt now of going live via YouTube. And here we go. Did anybody have a question? I thought I heard a mic go on. All right. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining. Team cohesion and team dynamics is a topic that I'm very, very excited about. I think that as managers, sometimes we inherit teams. Sometimes we don't get a say with what team we're handed. And sometimes we do get the luxury and privilege of forming our own teams. So that's part of what makes the dynamics with teams so difficult to master. So you're not alone if you're currently in a team that has a little friction in it or isn't quite getting along. There's actually a lot more to it than meets the eye. So we're going to cover some of it today in our brief nugget-sized digestible webinar. All right, so let's get into it. So quick, brief overview of our company. So we are Management Cues. I am Dr. Myra Austin, the CEO and founder of Management Cues, and we specialize in really empowering managers through a unique training approach. Our approach is scientifically proven to work, so we make sure that our managers are retaining what they're learning, that they're able to apply it, and that it works. And so we're excited to learn about our managers' experiences and really take pride in building community with all of the leaders and managers that we partner with out there. So that's a little bit about us. We're going to talk about taking a team from friction to flow, meaning we're going to start with when the friction is there and how to get it to a point where we're actually enjoying working with our teams. They're enjoying working with us, and we're getting to know team dynamics in a bit of a different way. So what we're going to cover in this brief webinar today is going to be an introduction, psychological safety, roles and responsibilities, communication, conflict resolution, collaboration, inclusion, and how to bring balance within the team dynamic, and then ultimately why it matters and why our brains respond the way they do when we're looking at team dynamics, and then we'll close it out. Okay, feel free to raise your hand, to comment in chat, to unmute if there's something that really sparks your interest or your passions. I love to interact with you guys and appreciate you taking the time to participate. Great. So here we go. So team dynamics are really based on how well we know each other and how well we know what's happening with the team. Okay, so the science of flow is where we are looking at synergy, shared focus, and seamless collaboration that ultimately leads us to perform in very high outcomes, right? Or the type of outcomes that we like to see coming from our team. Shifting from reactive to proactive is looking at moving from reactive problem solving, which is, constantly taking out fires, constantly dealing with challenges or complaints, to really working in an environment that's proactively cultivating positive team dynamics, that's enriching, that's creating sustainability for the business. Role clarity and alignment is about defining roles so that there isn't overlap between what is being done and what is being expected, and that we're minimizing misunderstandings and we're fostering a sense of purpose, right? Our teams know what we're here to do together. Emotional intelligence in teams is really understanding self-awareness, empathy, and interpersonal skills that can dissolve the tension and build stronger connections, right? So it requires this different lens as to what is happening within teams. The role of leadership is effective when it's setting the tone of a collaborative, open, and cohesive environment. So as managers, we also play a component of leadership, and setting the tone is a big aspect of setting expectation and accountability with a group of team members that might not necessarily always see eye to eye. Continuous improvement mindset introduces strategies for fostering growth. And it's having this mindset of what can we do better? How can we do it? How can we incorporate to adapt, learn, and evolve together as a unit, right? And so for that to happen, team members have to really understand what they look like and what composite they're made up of, right? Measuring progress is stressing the importance of assessing and measuring to ensure sustainable improvements and making sure that things are fully optimized. But in addition to that, it's making sure that things are transparent and easily understood. Okay. So, what is psychological safety in the workplace? We hear this a lot and have heard a lot about it. As managers, it's actually quite difficult to achieve. And so, it's first, we want to start with the fundamentals, right? So, a shared belief that team members can express ideas, questions, concerns, and mistakes without fear of judgment and retaliation. So, this is a muscle that managers must build and a discipline, because we have feelings too, and we have thoughts too that lend to our ultimate outcomes. So, the key to fostering trust, collaboration, and innovation and high performance is found in psychological safety. So here's something to consider and why it's important in the workplace. It encourages open communication and feedback. It boosts creativity and problem solving. It reduces fear of failure, fostering a growth mindset. It improves employee engagement, retention, and satisfaction. So here's where we should start as managers when our teams are in friction, right? When our teams are not necessarily in a synergistic place, and we have to get them from one stage to the next. So model vulnerability as a leader. This means acknowledging our own mistakes and growth areas to normalize imperfection. In management, we're in a position of authority, so sometimes we focus on areas of providing direction, on discipline, these other areas, and don't necessarily spend as much time modeling vulnerability as we should, right? That's part of making it okay to move past a mistake and into progress or into mastery. So it's important to understand that sweet balance. Encourage open communication, promote active listening, and create spaces where everyone's voice is valued. And sometimes that means you stepping out and paying attention to who isn't speaking up or who never has something to share or contribute, and creating a space that's comfortable for that person to do so, because their insight matters as you're moving through day-to-day tasks, workflows, or even just team dynamics, team interactions. You want to set clear expectations, establish norms for respectful, constructive feedback and collaboration. This means that as a manager, you're holding the line. You're making sure that this is how expectations are set. This is how we operate in this team, and that we're looking to hear from you and collaborate. You want to celebrate contributions and learnings. That means recognizing team achievements and framing mistakes as opportunities for learning. So it's changing the narrative around what it looks like to fail or succeed, and making it a stepping stone either way for further progress. You want to embrace the diversity of thought, actively seek and value different perspectives to enrich decision making. Some of the times we focus on what has always worked, or who has the most experience, or who has been in a role for a designated number of years. But the diversity of thoughts brings a freshness and introduces an opportunity for innovation that can sometimes prove to be a competitive advantage. And so you don't want to miss out on that. You want to address conflict effectively, manage conflicts and empathy, fairness, and a focus on problem solving. So again, being problem solving or solution oriented helps us move through and not get stuck in some of that friction that the team may be feeling. And you want to provide consistent support. So that's offering resources, mentorship, and reassurance to help team members thrive. You want to ask questions like, is this helpful? Does this support you? What can I do different? Those types of things can help you take a team from friction to flow by eliminating silos or eliminating gaps in interactions between the team members, and keeping in mind that as a manager, you're part of the team. You're not outside of the team. You are part of the team. You want to foster inclusivity, make sure people can feel themselves being seen, heard, and respected regardless of their role or background. So roles and responsibilities. As an operations leader, I often come into environments where part of the team friction is taking place because roles are not clearly defined. And there's a power struggle between what somebody is doing and what somebody else might be doing. So you want to define roles and responsibilities early to set a solid foundation for team success. So this could be taking a look at job descriptions with your HR leader or with your team members and figuring out, is there an overlap that's creating conflict, whether it's something that maybe wasn't identified in the past, or the role as it was defined worked well in the past, but is no longer relevant because of market or business changes. You want to align roles with individual strengths, interests, and expertise. It has to all sync up and make sense for it to really introduce cohesion to a team environment. Regularly review and adjust roles to meet evolving team and organizational needs. Foster open communication to ensure everyone understands and respects the role boundaries. So boundaries is an area that we run into quite often with our clients, and I have run into from an operations standpoint in the past, is boundaries aren't set clearly from one role to the other. And so that introduces a degree of either a silo that is created because of it, or friction that happens every time certain areas are overlapping or interacting. When it comes to communication and a team is in friction, you want to establish clear channels. So you want to define the preferred methods for sharing information. So I call this creating communication standards. And so if in your department or in your company, you don't have a set of communication standards, that may be part of what's fueling that fire around friction. Communication standards can be as simple as the responsive time, right? If you expect people to respond within 4 hours, within 3 hours, setting a standard helps people know how to navigate that successfully. The absence leaves it up to them to each respond at a different time, right? That's one example. But using channels and tools that you use for communication is another way to standardize the way a team communicates. That could be as simple as dedicating certain channels for certain type of communication. If you're using software like Slack or Teams or any other type of project management tool, which typically allows you to designate and create a specific area for a specific type of communication. Practice active listening. So you want to encourage team members to listen attentively and seek to understand each other's perspective. So seek to understand, not necessarily seek to answer or be right? Promote open feedback. Foster a culture where constructive feedback is welcome and it is valued. So this is typically considered creating a feedback loop, right? Where do you designate a special spot for feedback to take place in the team interaction? That is typically an opportunity to get in front of issues that may be coming up or have a potential to come up in the future. Set communication norms. So this is similar to what I was just referencing, but it's how we communicate as a team. How are we comfortable communicating, and what is the expectation? And it's not only responsiveness, it also includes the frequency with which we communicate with each other, the tone with which we communicate, and what expectations, right? When are we falling short? If a team is not aware of how they're falling short in the way that their communication takes place, it could be because a standard was never created. And I run into that quite a bit with companies where there is no set standard. And so everybody's just communicating at their own pace, and they're not realizing that maybe they're falling short of ultimately the company's expectation or the manager's. You want to encourage inclusivity. You will always have in a room a mix of voices, right? Or personality or communication styles. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of each team member. And sometimes it takes the manager's awareness to call every single person get a feel for what they have to say, or have a rhythm that you follow, where you're moving through people, through the audience in different ways throughout a month, throughout a week, but you're in essence touching every single team member to get a glimpse of what their insight is. Adapt to team needs. So you want to use communication styles and tools around that to understand preferences and how to optimize people's contribution through communication. What are they comfortable with? What are they uncomfortable with? What type of contribution do they make based on their ability or style? And then regular check-ins, schedule frequent updates to maintain alignment and address issues proactively. So cohesiveness has so much to do with communication, and sometimes we just don't have enough touch points in between what we do. And so those touch points are what keep us together, keep us aligned. When there is friction, you need more touch points, not less touch points, to bring people back into line. And you have to kind of identify what that rhythm should look like. So conflict resolution, if you're already in friction, there's going to be conflict, no doubt about it. So you want to demonstrate calm and respectful, solution-focused communication during conflicts to set the tone for the team. Your tolerance level as a manager dictates how this goes in terms of conflict. So you want to create a safe environment where team members feel comfortable, they're sharing their concerns and viewpoints without fear of retaliation. So how we respond to what is brought up as managers plays a role in how people dictate their future behavior, how open they feel, how psychologically safe it is. So you want to go beyond what's happening, the surface level issue, and look at the root cause or underlying factors. Or is this a systemic or environmental thing? Have we set the team up to succeed or not? You want to guide team members to work together to resolve disputes, emphasizing shared goals and mutual benefits. So as managers, something that really works in terms of friction or conflict is having a clear idea of, as a team, what are you supposed to be achieving? As a department, what is the goal for the company? How does that translate over to each individual success? So that takes a little bit of time to work on. Goal design is something that I definitely recommend for managers to work on and get really strong in, because it helps you tie in these areas to where we understand why it's important to work together, right? Even if we may not be necessarily an exact match. And you want to equip the team with the conflict resolution skills and steps. So another thing that I see oftentimes lacking is managers not providing steps for conflict resolution or progressive discipline in environments. And so that leads to more unnecessary communication or conflict, a lack of direction, and ultimately, when emotions run high, the issues escalate. So it's important to create something that people can follow. So here's a tool. And I'd love to hear in chat if you guys have ever used this plus delta chart. So I'm also a university professor and I teach organizational behavior. And as part of the lessons that we teach, I go through this tool with our students, and it's called a plus delta chart. So let me know if you guys have heard of this tool or not, but this is a great conflict resolution tool that can make it easy to create psychological safety. And the way that managers can use it, and you could literally draw it on a whiteboard, you could draw it on a piece of paper, but you can break up two groups of people or two people, and you can have them list what they feel should be continued and what the positive aspects of what you're talking about are. Or they can fall on the other side of the delta and they can speak to what should be stopped and what the negative aspects of what they're discussing is. So the reason why this is such a cool tool to use during times of friction in a team is because, one, you kind of gamify it, and that always kind of brings tensions down. But two, you're able to see and outline what they're valuing when it comes to their friction and what their points of concern are. You're also able to more clearly get consensus and basically walk through to problem solving without having the issue escalate. Very transparent, objective way of having a discussion in a way that kind of helps everybody see the bigger picture. So fantastic tool to use. Victoria, thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. Easy, simple tool to use for managers. It works really well. Test it. I would love to know in the future if it works for you. It's worked for me on many occasions and has allowed us to move through from friction to flow, regardless of what the topic is. So that's a great tool for you guys to take. So collaboration. Collaboration is hard when there is friction. So here's how you can start to kind of initiate more higher degree of collaboration with a team that just isn't vibing, right? You can differentiate between team goals and individual goals. So that's an exercise that I encourage managers to do, is be aware and clear on what the team goal is and what individual goals each team member has. And obviously this becomes harder if you have a very large team, but you can standardize, you can automate by creating templates, and enable conversations in an easier way around this. But it is important to connect the individual personal goal to the higher level goal for them to understand their impact within a team and why it's relevant. You want to facilitate regular team communication and knowledge sharing. Use collaborative tools to increase transparency. So if you're using tools, but they're not making things better, maybe it's time to use the tools differently or to advocate for a different set of tools that would enable higher transparency for the team. Encourage valuing diverse opinions and ensure everyone speaks. This requires the manager to be aware during moments that could be very frustrating. So it is a discipline, and it comes with a lot of practice in terms of acknowledging everybody, at least from your perspective, and through observation. You want to provide cross-functional teamwork to break through silos. So it's very easy, especially now that we have remote and hybrid teams, for there to be silos. And so these types of tools really help us create a higher awareness around what's happening to ensure that there aren't any silos in our environment. Recognize and celebrate team collaboration, not just individual outcomes. So because a lot of us are in this kind of hybrid or remote state nowadays, it's easy to forget about the team being a unit, because it honestly, a lot of the time, feels like we're just working by ourselves. And so it's important to acknowledge both and to know that both exist when it comes to performance, right? The team collaboration is a performance expectation, as well as the individual outcomes. So inclusion really is about respect and empathy and openness to different perspectives. That's what inclusion is. And so it's assigning tasks, projects, and growth opportunities to everybody in a similar fashion. What I encourage managers to do is to create criteria, right, around what it looks like to create equity and inclusion, to make sure that everybody gets ample opportunity. And of course, as it's merited, people who perform and show up, get a higher return of that opportunity. But how the opportunity is presented is really where it comes down to the manager's role in terms of what they're doing. So, and how that plays into flow. So you want to use language and methods that resonate with everybody at the table. So you want to make sure everybody's understanding the messaging, and you want to intervene if there's anything that's contradicting that sense of respect and equity and empathy with teams. And you want to check in to assess how inclusive is your environment, right? Do people feel like it's okay to step into things, to share about themselves, to state when they're not happy, those types of things. And you want to, of course, make sure that you're clear on what accommodations would actually help. Sometimes it's an absence of an accommodation that's creating friction within a team. Or, you have team members who see the accommodation as an absence of performance. And so you have to talk through those things and get a clear understanding, obviously without sharing any medical information if it's a medical type of accommodation or any other privileged information. But you want the team to understand that performance and criteria has been placed on any accommodation so that they can see how it's not an opening for less performance or for an absence of performance for people. That usually helps people navigate through friction, dealing with accommodations within a team. So monitoring. So as a manager, it's important for us to monitor. It's an essential part of execution. So it's something that it's embedded in our function and what we do. So you want to hold healthy and responsible monitoring. You want to make sure you're not micromanaging. And that you are looking for signs of conflict, disengagement, and misalignment before it actually escalates. You want to play the role of keeping the momentum and the synergy going, which is why you want this kind of point of awareness. And you want to ensure that you have ongoing dialogue and feedback that can keep everyone aligned and informed. And so in a virtual setting, sometimes it's dedicating specific channels or specific software tools for feedback specifically on specific areas that are patterns within your environment. It's demonstrating that you're the leader that's invested in their health and well-being, right? And asking about burnout and those kinds of things, which can also very much keep a team in friction if they're burnt out, right? So it's getting a gauge for those things and providing insights into what's working and where adjustments are needed. So monitoring allows you as managers, when a team is in friction, to call out the symptoms that you're observing so that the team becomes aware and you're able to move through to that solution stage, which ultimately gets you to that flow. So balance and team phase. So teams move through phases. And as managers, if we don't know what phase our team is in, we're not able to support them and we're not able to move them through the next phase, right? So these are similar to project management phases, but they're also just team development stages. So forming. So when a team is forming, the team members have just been introduced. The roles are still unclear. They're still getting a feel for one another. And so the focus is for each person to get to know each other and to start to build that kind of team cohesion. So the manager and leader's role is to guide them to that stage and to create opportunities where they can do that. In the storming phase, it's when conflict and disagreements start to rise because team members are no longer as shy and they're starting to fall into and touch into those differences that we all have. It's when the power struggles come up. It's when leaders start to mediate conflict. So this is where you start to activate the conflict resolution model and you start to show them how you resolve things and what your philosophy for resolving problems are. So you kind of start to set that stage. When teams are in norming phase, the team members are beginning to actually run in tune, right? They're starting to develop trust and cohesion. When they're in this phase, the roles are clear. Everybody knows what they're doing. They're humming, right? And the leader's role at that stage is just to support and continue to reinforce positive behaviors and the performance that's taking place. When you get to performing stage, that's the ultimate cohesion stage. That's when you're flowing at that point. And that's when the team reaches high levels of efficiency and collaboration. This is when you're meeting your department goals. This is when you're meeting your team goals and you're satisfying that component for the company, right? This is when members are working towards shared goals. They understand what each is contributing. They know what each needs to work on. It's not a point of conflict. It's just a moving forward point. And at that stage, leaders focus on maintaining team momentum and continuous improvement, right? That's a never ending thing for managers to continuously improve. But in the performing stage, you're putting out exactly what you're supposed to from a team standpoint. And then adjourning or the morning stage, this happens when the team breaks up. And this happens anytime a team member is leaving or has left. Right. So the team at this point it is technically disbanded as a unit. And the role of the leader and the manager in this stage is for them to transition them back to forming and all the way back through the cycle. So it's important, so important and relevant for managers to have awareness around what phase their team is in. So out of curiosity, thinking of the unit that you're part of right now, what team phase do you think you're currently in? I'd love to hear from you in chat. Okay, as you guys are doing that, I'm going to continue on. We're running a little bit longer. It won't be more than a minute or so, I believe. So stay on if you can't. If not, I will be happy to forward the recording. But leveraging neuroscience. So as we're leveraging neuroscience, when it comes to team friction and taking them to flow, here's the science behind the things we just walked through. Using regular praise and recognition triggers dopamine release, which reinforces positive behaviors and motivation. So when we get regular, right, consistent praise and recognition for doing the right things in the workplace, we actually have a trigger in our brain that causes us to continue to want to do those things and continue to feel motivated. Thank you, Victoria. Ensuring psychological safety activates the brain's reward system. So if you haven't done a lot of reading around the brain's reward system, check it out. It's really interesting. For me, it forced me to pay attention to the design of how I was designing rewards for my teams because it actually triggered them in a neurological way. It encourages risk-taking and innovation without fear of failure. So it's really interesting, when people feel safe, their mind opens up, for lack of a better term. You want to implement practices like breaks, mindfulness, and stress management techniques that helps reduce cortisol levels and maintains cognitive performance. When we're stressed and we're burned out, we just don't perform optimally. We're not made or designed that way. So as managers, balancing those things helps us get more out of our people, not less. Facilitate group brainstorming sessions that engage the brain's creative processes and foster teamwork. Apply the brain's preference for simplicity by delivering information in short, digestible formats to improve retention and understanding. So try to make it brief, concise, and clear. That will give you a greater impact when it comes to getting teams from friction to flow. And the growth mindset. So managers who cultivate a growth mindset in teams care about team dynamics. So something like understanding the team phases and the phase your team is in helps kind of create that growth mindset because you have a stepping off point. You know that based on the phase that you're in, there's an active role you need to take and what it is that you need to do. The absence of that is the opposite, right? You're kind of just left thinking that's just how the team is, which is not the case. There's a reason for it. Seeing team development as a priority is knowing that the personal growth directly influences team dynamics and successes. So it's important for managers to identify the gaps in skill, experience, and strengths and weaknesses and all of that in order to really give somebody an opportunity to perform dynamically in a team. So here are our key takeaways for today. Team dynamics don't go from friction to flow without psychological safety. So you have to incorporate those neurological areas from neuroscience and how that impacts your management. Managers must play an active role in team dynamics. Team member roles and responsibilities must have clear boundaries and definition to be effective. So make sure that chaos isn't being introduced as part of that friction due to a lack of definition in roles and responsibilities. Managers who understand and are aware of team phases have a better starting point when it comes to team dynamics. So if nothing else from today, please give consideration and thought to what phase your team is in. And managers must step into conflict to cultivate strong team dynamics. Not doing so does the opposite. So it's important for you to confidently step into conflict and know how to take them and lead them out of it and create a standard for that. Okay, any questions, comments, or feedback before I close out? Victoria, I appreciate your participation in chat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and keep going if there's nothing else. Okay, so training and support. So Management Cues offers a range of things, of accessible ways to be strategic in your management role and to support the experiences that you create in the workforce. So Check us out at our website at www.managementcues.org. Our planner is an excellent, affordable, accessible tool that walks managers through the functions of leadership and management in a very easy way. And of course, you could always reach out to us for a free management consultation, and we'd love to give you feedback on what's going on with your teams. We provide custom training programs and live events through our Management Cues events page. So thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I hope you took a few nuggets in this very brief webinar, and we'd love to hear from you soon. Thank you so much for joining. Let me know if you have any questions. You're welcome. You're welcome. Take care.